Well, Mr. President, thanks for having me here, and really appreciate it. So let me get right to it. First of all, why write a children's book? I found out about letters to my daughters. I mean, the importance of it. What was the significance of putting that book together?
You know, some publishers approached me after I had written my second book, and they said, you know, you might have something to say to young people. And I thought that the opportunity to be able to reach younger children and be able to tell them about why America still is a land of opportunity, allow them to draw inspiration from the incredibly diverse figures in our history that have contributed to making this country great, from Jackie Robinson to Albert Einstein to George Washington, to remind them that our diversity is a strength and not a weakness, I thought was a wonderful thing to do. Now, I actually agreed to do this when I was a senator. It was not yet in the cards that I was going to be president of the United States. And during the campaign, I had to put off writing it. So the publishers have been very patient with me. But I think it's a great opportunity for me to speak to young people. It was a nice opportunity for me to interact with my daughters. I asked them to read it and see what they thought.
And how big of critics were they?
You know, I think they're pretty soft on their dad. They figure I've already got enough to worry about.
So not a lot of rewrites.
Not too many rewrites.
Well, let me. Since we're talking about young people, you're going to speak today to a group of young people. We've got an advance of the speech.
Right.
I mean, if you had a young person say to you, President Obama, who was your favorite teacher? Mm-hmm. At what point, or educator, at what point in your life did the light go on that said education is extremely important?
You know, I had so many great teachers when I was young. I remember there was a teacher I had in 5th grade called Mrs. Hefty. And I was new at this school. I was one of the only black students in the school. And I had been living overseas. And so, you know, was still kind of getting adjusted to being back. And she took me under her wing. She had actually visited Africa. She was inspired by Africa. She would, insist that I should be proud of my heritage and my history. And she opened up a whole pathway for me. In college, I had just a group of wonderful younger teachers, people who would get me to think hard about my social responsibilities as well as my academic obligations, and who would say to me, you know, don't just read books to get grades, read books to open your mind to figure out how you can make a contribution to your society. And so I think at every juncture I have benefited from outstanding teachers, and part of our message, the message that I'm delivering today to young people, but also the message that we're going to be pushing throughout my presidency, is that teachers really matter. That the single most important thing we can do to improve our education system is to recruit, train, and retain outstanding teachers.
Well, let me go to a policy question. I was reading some articles about these fees that are being charged now. And I know that the ACLU is filing lawsuits because they're saying it might be impacting public education. In some schools, you know, people have got to pay $100 to play on the football player, basketball, you know. Right. I don't think either of our parents or grandparents could have afforded it.
Well,
so the question that I'm asking, at some point, does your administration, would it consider joining these lawsuits?
Well, you know, I'm not familiar with the lawsuits themselves, Joe, but I am familiar with the phenomenon that's happening all across the country. I saw it as I was traveling in states everywhere. And that is that our public education systems have gotten to the point now where what we used to take for granted, even if you went to a relatively poor school, that you'd always have a music teacher, that you'd always have sports teams.
Art teacher.
You always have an art teacher. That those things in a lot of school districts you can no longer take for granted. And that, I think, is a huge mistake. Look,
so what is your administration do?
well, part of what we've been doing is providing support during this terrible recession to states and local school districts so that they aren't firing the music teacher or they aren't firing the art teacher. Some of it just has to do with basic support during a very bad economic time. But part of it also has to do with, I think in a lot of communities, a de-emphasis on those aspects of education that are critically important to a child's development. Look, studies show that children who do well in music are going to do better in math. Studies show that if you are healthy and physically active, that you will be able to concentrate more effectively in the classroom. You know, our children have to learn on all fronts, and I really want to make sure that we're delivering that message that music education